This is Bill Johnson, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com. Feed your head.
All right, and we're back once again. I want to thank Jonathan Tierston for coming on the show, and we want to thank the Musician of the Month, Barry Barmcake. And now we're joined by director Richard Powell and producer Zach Green of Fatal Films. How are you guys doing?
Doing good,
great.
thanks.
How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Fantastic.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Nice to have you guys on.
Oh,
Yeah, thanks for having
Thank
us.
Absolutely.
And I've actually talked to Zach for years. I think dating back to MySpace.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What connected you guys together?
At the time, I don't think he was. I think he was making Consumption.
Yeah. Back when I first started speaking to Niels, back on MySpace when me and Richard were producing Consumption back in 2008.
What was that your first film that you guys worked on together?
Yeah, that was me and Richard's first movie, based on a true story about a cannibal living in Germany.
Oh. So this is like the Craigslist or whatever story?
I think it
no,
predated
similar. That was part of the inspiration for our wanting to tell that story. It started off, just reading about that crazy case over in Germany, and then we started thinking about what would actually motivate somebody to. I mean, not so much the killer. The killer, obviously, getting in the psychology of a murderer is interesting, but somebody who would actually put themselves up for slaughter. So, from the point of view of the victim, I started thinking about that, and I started thinking about how sad, tragic. And so instead of making a short film just about the blood and the guts and gore, it was more about the psychology of this odd contrast. And that's kind of what the short is. It's a 30-minute short. There's only about 2 minutes of gore. The rest is just this kind of philosophical discussion about why would somebody want this and why would somebody allow this to happen to them. So that's kind of what that was.
Yeah, I agree. That's a totally fascinating subject. If someone wanted to see that, where would they find it?
Zach?
So that's actually it's doesn't really have distribution like on DVD. You can't really find it anywhere, but there's a distribution company based out of Los Angeles called American Horrors. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. A gentleman named Hart is the CEO and runs that company, and Consumption is playing on his 24-hour uncut genre channel.
Nice.
That's I guess that's across the states on satellite.
How did you guys get together? Were you guys friends before you started making films together?
Me and Richard met back in film school in 2003, 2004. We met back in film school, and I ended up editing a project for the third term students. He got to each student in third term in the production class. I was in post production, I should mention, and Richard pitched film to the faculty. It got picked up, and he was looking for an editor for the movie. I happened to know one of the producers on the movie, so that's how I first came across Richard. I applied to be an editor on the movie, and I met Richard, sat down with Richard, started talking, and we said, let's give it a shot. And I ended up cutting that movie, and we basically built our rapport and our relationship in the editing room.
Did you just find that you guys had similar personalities, similar ideas for movies? What made it this seems like a good combination?
I think what's funny is me and Zach had been aware of each other in film school. It wasn't the biggest film school, so we'd always kind of bump into each other at after-school functions, like at the local pubs. Everybody would go out for drinks after to talk about film and stuff. I'd see Zach there. I'd see Zach in the halls. But we never chatted. And then when we finally started meeting on my third-term film project, like you said, we had a lot in common. I think the biggest thing was we had similar work ethic. We're both Capricorns, and I wouldn't say that we're big into astrology or any of that, but we do find as Capricorns we do have certain similar traits. We both are the type of guys that when it comes to work, it consumes us. We're obsessed with it. Even after we release a film, we're not the type of guys who worry about after parties or going and having rap parties. We're just focused on the next thing. If we accomplish something, we don't really celebrate it. We just focus on the next thing. So I think we have this really interesting relationship where my weaknesses are his strengths and his strengths are my weaknesses. And I mean, I think you can't make a partnership. Partnerships, real valuable partnerships, form on their own. And it's just one of those things. Neither of us forced it. It just happened. And now it's something that I don't think either of us would be able to do this without one another. And that's kind of great. You need somebody to keep you going when you're feeling down and vice versa. So it started out as just, hey, we're both in film school, let's get this done. And then there's this kind of respect for each other and realizing what we could offer each other kind of made it last.
Yeah, we both complement what the other one lacks.
Mm-hmm. Now, you guys have made 3 shorts together. Consumption, Familiar, and Worm.
Yep.
Now, Worm, can you get Worm on DVD?
You'll be able to get Worm is, again, it's distributed through American Horrors by Hart Fisher, so it plays on that channel in the States. So I mean that some audience members can get it and some can't. I don't know if American Horrors is available outside of America, but Worm is going to be made available actually in a box set that we're creating on the Kickstarter for our newest film, Heir. You'll actually be able to purchase a box set, and Familiar, Worm, and Heir will all be in there. So that will be a chance for everybody to actually get their hands on a physical copy of the film. And I'm imagining the agreement we have with American Horrors, it was a limited agreement. So I imagine that when that agreement runs out, me and Jack might go about maybe putting the film online or something like that. And then again, if we have a chance to make a feature film version of Worm, which is what we're planning to do, we'll probably be able to make that available as a supplement to special features on the disc. So we're hoping in the future more people will get a chance to see Worm, because that one is, that's the one that really, I think, made us grow up as filmmakers, because we shot on film as opposed to digital. We had a much larger location. We shot in high school with like dozens of extras, and we're really proud of that film, and it's going to serve as the basis for our feature. So we want more people to see it, and hopefully in the future they will.
What was the real difference between shooting on film and shooting digital?
I think the big difference, again, a lot of people who are more focused on the tech side will say there's differences visually, and I agree there are. There's something about the look of film that I appreciate, but I love digital as well. I think Familiar, our latest short film, is beautiful, and it was digital. But I think the biggest difference is film makes you appreciate the medium you're using. It makes you slow down and plan your shots, because you can't just burn it. You have to think about every shot, every setup. So I think what it does is it makes you reevaluate every shot. It makes you slow down and just think about what you're doing. Whereas digital, and we had the experience before shooting digital, you just run and run and run, and it doesn't have the same, it doesn't feel the same. Film feels special when you're around it, when somebody has to pick it out of the camera and put it in the bag and get it away so it doesn't get flashed by the light. Something about it is, it has a quality that digital doesn't have. But again, digital I still love as well. But that's what I think the biggest difference is film, because you're on a budget like we were, you really have to be sacred with every shot, and I think that it made us more disciplined.
You're not really taking it for granted then, because
I also
just film and film and film. Were you saying, Zach? Sorry.
I just wanted to throw in an opinion there. I personally, I don't really think anything can really. I guess you can always argue this. You can't really replicate the look of 35 millimeter or 16. The difference, why I but a great thing about shooting red or digital is you can watch your dailies and rushes the day of. So after your day of shooting, you can watch everything you got, make sure you got, and you need everything. You shot everything you needed, so you don't have to reshoot anything per se, or you would know sooner. And I just like watching playback right away. I think that's a huge advantage to digital, and everything's digital now. Everything 35 won't even, another few years, you'll rarely hear anybody even using it.
Mm-hmm. Mm. What I liked about Worm is it's really like the inner dialogue of the teacher. I thought that was really is really interesting to watch on film. And was that teacher inspired by any real teacher, or?
I would say the character from Worm, Jeffrey Dodd, he's inspired by two separate things. He's inspired first off by kind of my own fears of a future, fears of a future of compromise and settling for something I didn't want. That character's a frustrated writer. He always wanted to be a novelist, and he never quite got there. So he sort of settled into the second career, which is appealing. You know, the pay is good, the vacations are good, and it seems like somebody of his intellectual aspirations could settle into and feel like he's doing good in the world. But then over the years, he kind of gets grinded down to this stuff, and he's a hateful, resentful person. So I always had this fear that I have these creative aspirations myself, and what happens if I compromise? What would I be like? What would I turn out? And I thought of a worst-case scenario, and I imagined a bitter, angry, cynical me 10, 20, 30 years from now, and that was kind of the first inspiration for Worm. But another thing was I did have a high school teacher who was probably my favorite teacher. He was the coolest guy, high school English teacher, just like Jeffrey and Worm. Very cool, very personable. One day we came into class, and not everybody had finished a report that was due on that day, and he seemed fine at first, and then he kind of just stood up and threw his chair against the wall and walked out of the room. And it was very surprising because, yeah, there was no indication that this was going to come, and him as a person you would never suspect would be capable of anything. And that always stuck with me, the instant switch that, there is something going on underneath this cool guy who likes to chum around with us and talk to us on our level and is enthusiastic about learning. There's also this, I've had enough of this crap, and that always stuck with me. So it was kind of a combination of those two things.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I like this guy already. That's good.
You know, when it's like something that's close to Richard, his inspiration was something in his own head and like a personal experience with a teacher. Is that hard, or is that easy to like convey to Zach? Because someone else.
The thing about Zach with whenever I have any ideas, if one of the first people I talk to, if it's not my girlfriend, it's Zach, and I love bouncing ideas off of him, because what Zach does really good is because he's not in my head. He's not having the same inspirations. Zach looks at it from an outside perspective and asks all the questions that I didn't consider, and he really helps me proofread it, essentially. He makes me make sure that it's airtight and that it makes sense. Zach is kind of like my devil's advocate. He's always asking the questions I didn't consider, and that, I think, ends up making whatever I'm doing thematically make more sense, the character motivations ring more true. And I think that's a lot of things that writers who don't maybe have sounding boards that they can rely on, they don't have that. Or they don't have somebody who is critical. Zach doesn't mince words. If something doesn't make sense to him or doesn't feel right, he tells me right away, because we're so close. And he also has a stake in the project. He's not just my writing buddy who, I send my scripts to. He's going to be helping me produce this thing, so he wants to make sure it makes sense as well. And because of that relationship, we're producers and partners and buddies, he'll always tell me the truth. So he might not be there for the initial inspiration, but he's right there making sure that whatever I say makes sense and he gets excited about. And that's true. If he gets excited, then I get excited. I'm like, okay, I got my first audience member on board, and he's the most important one, because he needs to be motivated to help me make this film as well. And it always starts there.
Mm-hmm. You guys mentioned your one that you're working on now, Heir, and that you have a Kickstarter campaign, and you guys go to Kickstarter. We'll have the link right on the website, but if you search for Heir on Kickstarter, you find it. If you go to either of you guys' Facebook page, it's also up there. And would you just like to give people like an idea of what the idea behind this film is?
Sure. Heir, I have to be careful about how I describe it, because even though we're trying to get people's help to make it, I do want there to be some sort of a surprise, some sort of an element of surprise when we go into the film. But the best way I can describe it is, this is the elevator pitch. Everybody says that only a monster could abuse a child. People that abuse children are monsters. Well, Heir kind of says, well, what if those people were monsters? And you essentially follow a father and a son as they kind of go through this road trip from hell, and some horrible things are learned through the course of this road trip. And what I can say is the film features it's going to have some great practical special effects. It's a very disturbing plot, the most disturbing thing I've ever written, and I've written some disturbing things.
That sounds really dark.
It's disturbing to the point that I didn't know if I wanted to make it at first, and I still, when I think about it, don't know how people are going to react to it because the plot is so pitch black from the start. But I'm working in reverse. I'm starting from absolute pitch black darkness, and I'm going to try to pull the audience out into some kind of a hopeful, sunny place. Not sunny, but something hopeful. I think that the idea of working with something that comes off as absolute evil and giving it a bit of humanity and trying to show that not all monsters are absolute monsters. Absolute evil isn't real. Just working with the idea of the anti-hero. I've always written about anti-heroes or even worse, just straight-out villains, but I like humanizing them and kind of letting people know that evil isn't necessarily born evil, it gets that way. So this is kind of an exploration in the dark desires and twisted practical effects, and we're really excited about it. We really feel it's going to be our sharpest film. It's got everything going for it in terms of the cast and crew who are incredible. We have Robert Nolan again coming back for the third time, and by now, the relationship between me and Robert is that we don't even have to talk about certain things. He just understands what I'm going for. And then Bill Oberst, we're super excited to have somebody of his caliber come on to our project. He's going to bring so much to it. And then we have this amazing team of cast and crew. We have these co-producers, Red Sneakers Media. These guys are, some of my favorite filmmakers that I've met on the festival circuit. I have so much respect for them, and the idea that they're going to come and help us make our movie, we're really excited about that. So it's not just the story; it's the team, it's everything. It's like a perfect storm, and we just are really excited about it.
And that's very cool for you guys, but I really think what you just said is a giant sale. You're saying that from an outsider point of view, as a father and a kid, there's some kind of disgusting, horrible perversion involved, and somehow that is redeemed. That to me is mind-blowing. And what my thought was when I'm listening to this, and you're building up to this part where it's maybe there's some kind of redemption, is so this idea comes in your head, and you know it's dark and screwed up. What is it that makes you want to? Because that's probably unique and original, and that's a sale in and of itself. But you seem like you guys are very psychologically minded. So what is it that makes you push through and say, I know people are going to probably think poorly of me, but I need to do this?
For me, I think it's a couple of things. The first is I don't think anybody else, or there's not that many people that I'm aware of, that are willing to tell stories like this. And just the fact that there's an absence of that means there's an opportunity for us to step in and assert ourselves and have our own space, our own niche. I feel like, as much as I love what passes as standard horror films, I think there's room for growth. I think maturity. There needs to be some maturity come into horror films. We need to bring some of the elements from some of the other genres into horror and kind of strengthen it. These films are about characters, right? So if I'm writing psychological character studies, there has to be depth. There has to be character movement. You can't stay in absolute evil and end in absolute evil. You have to have some sort of an arc. And this film especially, this film is about redemption, but it's also about something extremely dark. And it doesn't necessarily give all of the answers. It doesn't tell you how to deal with these problems in the real world, but it's confronting something that isn't often confronted in film because it's too taboo. So I think that's what we have to offer, and I think that's what makes us do it. I see nobody else really kind of has the desire to do it, and for whatever reason, this is where my voice is coming from. I don't know why it is. I mean, that's the thing. I think all any filmmaker has, and I've been saying this to everybody, all of my writing buddies, all any filmmaker has is their voice. And if your voice is telling you to do something, even if it's going to be perceived as distasteful, even if it's going to be, considered not mainstream or standard, you still need to follow it because that's the one thing you have to offer. It's your point of view, your unique perspective. That's what you can offer the world as an artist. So that's what I follow. And that's the thing. It's not a plan. I'm not planning to do this. This is just how it's happening. And I think that's the purest way to do it. I'm not sure. I don't want to be anything else. I'm happy just telling the stories that come from my head, and if people like it, awesome.
And I think that really shines through as you're talking. It's not like just, there's so many films, there's just so many horror films out there now. It's just like, here's a zombie movie, or here's a, so-called torture porn movie. Here's this kind of prefab way of going about things. These are psychological movies, and they seem very intense, and you guys are really, really, like, so fired up about it. It's not just like some kind of like sleazy sales pitch. You guys are pumped about these movies and seem to really, it's not seem to, you obviously care a lot about them. And I'm really into psychologically minded films. Talking with you has made me now feel I want to watch this. I want to watch this and then see, because you're so excited about it, and see, is it going to meet my expectations of what you think of it? So this is very interesting to me. I'm really happy to have you guys on.
That's great. I mean, that's what we want. We just want people to know that we feel what we're doing is a little bit different, and I think that there's a need for that. There's a need for something, a little change of pace. There's plenty of room for everything that's been going on for the last 30, 40 years in horror. I mean, I think, in my opinion, some of it's getting stale. But hey, if that's what some people are passionate about, that's cool.
Yeah,
but
fair enough.
I think there's room for different types of stories. And the thing I'm excited about is I know what we're going to be bringing with this is something people haven't seen before. And that doesn't happen a lot in horror, because you can easily just say, well, I'm going to do a zombie movie, I'm going to do a vampire movie, This is something that hasn't been seen before, and it's being told in a way that hasn't been told before. And I feel like that's reason enough to tell it, even though it kind of disturbs me, and I'm worried about how people are going to react to it. But I think people, when they see this, regardless of how they feel, from, I guess, a moralistic point of view, they're going to understand the intention is pure, and they're going to respect it, I feel. So
I think that's the thing, is that you're going to get a lot of flack from people that just aren't into that kind of thing. But then there's people that are going to, like, that's, Neil and I are really into that kind of film. And when anything like that comes out, it's like water to a person that's been in the desert, because that's, I mean, like you said, there's all these other movies out there, and that's fine. I'm kind of tired of the zombie genre. Like you said, there's loads of people that love that. That's fantastic for them. But I'm dying for something that has some kind of intelligence, some kind of difference, something that's more psychological, because there are so many ways you can go about the human mind and what people do, because people are very screwed up, and there's all kinds of ways you can explore that through horror. And that you guys are doing that, I really am. I'm very excited to see what you put out.
Sounds like you're our perfect audience.
Exactly. Yeah.
What kind of movies did both of you guys like? What kind of movies are you guys drawn to? What inspired you guys to become movie makers?
You go first, Zach.
I really love drama and comedy. Those are my two favorite genres. And then over the years, started working with Richard. I've gained such an appreciation as well as a knowledge for genre and horror. So I've actually started appreciating a lot more, like psychological horror, not slasher movies. I mean, I can appreciate them. I just don't really enjoy watching slasher movies. I like more psychological thrillers. I really love thrillers. Not so much the blood and gore and like torture porn. Not so much that at all. I don't really enjoy watching that. Producing it behind the scenes is one thing. Sitting down and trying to enjoy a movie, it's another thing. Like it's a totally other story. Like you won't see me at home with friends or whatever, my girlfriend watching a horror movie. Most likely it would be like a comedy or a drama or potentially a thriller.
Yeah, and with me, I mean, it's the stereotypical story of the kid who went to the video store, and like obviously when you're young, you're just drawn to the visuals of the cover art box work, the cover box artwork, and I mean obviously if you're walking through, you're going to be drawn to the horror stuff. I mean, you're going to walk past Terms of Endearment and you're going to go right to Jason Lives, because that artwork it just sucks you in, right? So I started, I grew up watching all of the slashers. I mean, I think I saw the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre when I was about 8 or 9, and I loved it.
Oh, yeah.
And it just kind of went from there. But what happened is, by the time I was 16, 17, and I'd seen everything, I started wanting a little bit more. And then obviously I started getting into the more dramatic stuff. And I mean, now I'm at the point where I love horror and I like writing in horror, but my deepest appreciation goes more with dramatic film. But what's happening is I'm having these horror premises, these darker stories, and I'm taking all the things that I appreciate from dramatic film, like the character depth, the plot points, the structure, all of the the subplot, all of the subtext, metaphor, all of these things you'd find in the best dramatic or art house films, and I'm kind of bringing it into horror, but I'm still respecting the horror genre. I'm still having, in something like Familiar, where the whole film is this metaphorical horror film that kind of, the idea of somebody wrestling with their inner demons, and then it eventually comes to an actual physical confrontation with your inner demon. I still pay off the blood and guts because I still love that stuff. I still love The Thing and Evil Dead, American Werewolf in London. I still love all of those things. But then I also have this appreciation for character studies. Yeah. So that's kind of where my filmmaking inspiration comes from. So the types of films I'm into now, I'll still throw on a horror film that I love, like the original Dawn of the Dead, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Thing. All of those are some of my favorites. And then, of course, I also love dramatic films. So Ingmar Bergman films, Woody Allen films, John Cassavetes, all of these type of things. So my films are kind of like all of that thrown together, dramatic, horror, and that's kind of what these films are making out. It's a fusion of those things.
I think it's an interesting point because you still have to have like basic storytelling, I think, for a film to be interesting, or you have to be emotionally involved in some form. So, like, I'm not really into, as Zach said, a lot of the slasher films just because I'm not really involved into them. But if you have a good horror movie that also has you involved, then the gore and anything else, it just adds to that story.
100%. And that's the more dramatic elements from dramatic films. You give somebody real character. You give them believable motivations. You actually feel for them. When bad things happen to them, you feel it way more. And it's just a different bag of tricks that, for whatever reason, and I can understand why. I mean, you don't necessarily need that sort of dramatic storytelling in a Friday the 13th film. You don't need it in necessarily, even though the original Halloween, I think, even though it's a slasher, it's still a great thriller.
I agree.
So even if and you do sympathize with the characters, but even if you didn't, that film is so expertly constructed, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you don't maybe know everything about those characters because you're feeling the thrills and the atmosphere of that film. But, the original Halloween is different. That is a different slasher film than maybe Jason Goes to Hell or,
yes.
You know what I mean, the fifth Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm-hmm.
Without doubt.
Speaking of Halloween, I think a lot of that, not the whole movie, but a lot of the music really adds to the original Halloween.
Oh, for sure. It's so iconic. And that's one thing I'm jealous of. I'm jealous of these directors, these writer-directors who are also able to compose score. I have no musical talent, but if I did, I would love to be able to compose the score to anything I'm writing because it's just another level of control. You get to manipulate the audience with one more tool, and even though we love our composer Bernie and whoever will work with in the future, it's not the same as actually writing those notes yourself. I heard this great interview with Shane Carruth, the director of Primer and Upstream Color, and he writes the score for his films too, and he actually had scored all of Upstream Color, and then he realized the score was kind of not doing what he said the score was telling the audience how to feel, it wasn't expressing what the character was feeling, so he scrapped half the score and did it again. That's something that I don't think a composer who isn't the writer-director, that's a level of nuance he's not going to have. He's not going to understand it. So the film is going to feel more of a collaboration, which obviously all film is collaboration, but as a writer, director, creator, you want to have as much input on the creation of the film from all elements as possible. So that's something I wish I could do, and John Carpenter is a lucky, talented guy that he can do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. I never really thought of that.
And I know you guys have mentioned it's all practical effects. Is that something important to you?
I think so. To me, you can have practical effects that are noticeable as practical effects, but they still have a charm. You still appreciate it because, like everybody says, there's still something tangible on the screen. You can see something actually exists in that space and is actually changing or is being broken apart, or something is happening and is interacting with what's going on the screen. Some certain digital effects, it's not only does it not look real, like some bad practical effects don't look real, but your brain doesn't cross that uncanny valley. It doesn't accept that it belongs in what you're seeing. Mm-hmm. It feels like it's been dropped in. I think, and again, in Familiar, it's all practical effects, but there is one moment in it where when the guy's cutting his leg open and he looks inside of his leg and he finds this lump in his leg, there's an eye that blinks. That was actually done with a visual effect, not a practical. That was done with a computer. So I think the best use of that is to enhance everything that's going on. The best visual effects are the ones you don't notice when it comes to, I think, digital. But I do like the idea of the traditional practical effects. I mean, again, like I said, The Thing is one of my favorite movies. American Werewolf in London is one of my favorite movies because those scenes are just so fun to watch. The transformations in that and in the Howling or in The Thing, seeing it transform, and it's just something about it is fun. You understand its practical effects, but it sells you and you enjoy it and you love it. So I think it's a big selling point. Practical effects, people have a nostalgic connection to it as well. I think it's important to keep it going. I always would opt for practical effects to have the option. So.
It's something we talk a lot about when we're doing our video series, Dinner and Movie. Is I think the problem with a lot of the CGI is there's no weight to it. And like you're saying, exactly. Maybe you're not even picking up on that, but it's just in your head that it's not really there because just physically the weight isn't there. It's just not right.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be something as subtle as you can tell the actor is looking past. He's looking through this thing. He's not reacting to something that's right in front of him. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, it's not a big deal, but, I mean, if you have the choice between that and him actually having to wrestle with something in his hand, why not go for that? But I understand sometimes it's more cost-effective or whatever the reason is. But I agree. It lacks a weight. It lacks a substance.
Mm-hmm.
As an art-oriented person myself, I mean, I grew up looking at Fangoria thinking, I would really love to have this mask, I'd like to do this effect, blah, 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 blah. And seeing practical effects, it's something achievable. It's something you might be able to try to at least mimic in some small part. So it's something you could kind of go, wow, I would like to do that someday. And it's much more hands-on. I think it's not a diss on people that do computer stuff, but it's a very different feel. And you either are into more one than the other. And myself, I'm more into the hands-on kind of sculptural part. And I think that's huge for a lot of, because basically it's like playing with toys. You're putting makeup on at Halloween. That stuff is appealing. That appeals to a part of you that is childlike, because that's what you do when you're a kid. You put on stupid makeup and you make little clay things and stuff like that. And I think that makes a big difference for whether people appreciate a practical effect or not, is if they have that kind of childlike connection with it.
I would agree. I mean, when it comes to just even Halloween, when people would like apply makeups and they would try to dress themselves up and make themselves look as scary as possible, or put some sort of a weird gore effect on them. I mean, I think everybody's had experience doing that through Halloween, and it's like you guys are saying, just being able to touch it. It has a handcrafted quality that. Yeah, I think everybody, you can't help but just feel endeared to it. The whole element of something being created in a computer, it just doesn't feel the same as somebody had to pour the latex or sculpt or whatever. And that to me, I don't know. There's something about that. It's an extension. It's an artistic extension of filmmaking. It's another artistic element of the craft. I guess just because there's such a great history of films we all love that are practical effects, it's hard to get away from that. It's just there's this, because everybody knows what early visual effects look like, and then you compare that to what early practical effects look like, and one is abhorrent that you don't even want to look at it, and the other one is some of our greatest childhood memories, growing up watching movies. You can't help but have a preference.
Well, we just, in the middle of summer, we saw Ray Harryhausen died, and we saw Clash of the Titans and Jason the Argonauts, and that, you just watch that, and it's just fantastic, and a person could do that. You know, it wouldn't maybe not be as amazing, but you could do that. And I don't know, something about those films, it just hit something in people.
Yeah, we know Ray Harryhausen's name. We know Tom Savini's name. I mean, and like you said, no diss on the visual effects artist, but I don't know any of those guys' names.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
I don't know the guy who made, the ogre for sci-fi original film.
No. Sharknado? Don't know.
You probably should.
I probably should.
Right? Weird fool.
I want to bring up, too, over on the Kickstarter page, if people are not familiar with Kickstarter, when you donate, not only helping to get a movie made, which is the main thing, but there are for different levels of how much you donate, there's different incentives. Did you guys want to mention some of those?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, one of the things I think our Kickstarter is doing that I haven't seen a lot of is it's kind of a filmmaker-friendly Kickstarter. There's stuff there for people that are just fans of film and they want to help support film and get cool rewards in return, like copies of the film, art from the film, props from the film. But one thing I've noticed is most of the people that are aware of things like Kickstarter are artists and creators themselves. So I thought, well, if those are the people who are mostly aware of it, maybe we should create some perks for other artists, other filmmakers. So what I put on there is perks that I feel might help other aspiring filmmakers, people like us, who may want to have, an example of some of the perks are acting lessons with Robert Nolan. Another one would be you'd be able to have a phone call with me and Zach, and we would talk about our filmmaking process, all the things we've gone through, making our short films, getting the Kickstarter going, giving advice to you about your potential Kickstarter. Another perk we have is I've written a short film screenplay for, if I was to do another short after Heir, I wrote one called Vessel, and I'm not going to write it because it's written, but I'm not going to make it because our goal is after Heir to move on to features. That's what we're hoping is going to happen. So I have this short film screenplay that I was hopefully maybe going to make, but I'm not going to now. So I've got that up for sale. If there's a director out there who's looking for material, he's looking for a script, check it out. Maybe you like it, and that's a perk. You get to help our film out, and then you get a screenplay as well. I'm even offering to write an original screenplay, a short film screenplay for somebody. Just perks like that help filmmakers as well. The guy who did the poster for our short film, Heir, he is willing to do an original poster painting for your film. So maybe you want to have a cool poster for your short film, but you don't know an artist, you don't know anybody who's going to do it for decent rates. We have a guy who I know is proven because he's doing artwork, so obviously we stand by him. You select that perk, and not only do you help our film, but you get a poster for your movie. So there's those types of perks, and then there's the basic ones like a short film collection of our short films called the Box Cutter Trilogy, which is Warm, Familiar, and Heir. You could just get Heir on its own. You could just get Familiar on its own. We have a perk for $1. Your name can get painted onto a canvas, a creepy old canvas, that will be featured in the background of Heir. And so during a scene, the camera will kind of move past it, and you'll actually be able to freeze frame and see your name on it. And then we have things like signed wardrobe, special thanks in the film's credits and on IMDb. So we have loads of great perks. There's a lot of stuff up there that if I came across, I would be excited about. And that's kind of the way I designed the perks.
One of my favorite...
Very clever.
Yeah,
I was just...
Great ideas, because exactly for the reasons you said, a lot of these people that are going to care enough to donate are going to be like-minded people, and I think those are great things, because you're not Oliver Stone, but you've been through this process and you know what it takes to get to the next step. And so people have access to that, and you guys are friendly. It's not like you're a couple of assholes. You're friendly, decent people that would be easy to talk with, and you really would care enough to work with someone to really help them out. It wouldn't be like they just, you paid blah, blah, blah to get access to this. Oh, all right, I'll talk with you real quick and then screw off, bye. It sounds like you really care and want to help people.
I can guarantee you that anybody who selects these perks, they're going to get way more than just what that perk says. That's one thing that you can't really express maybe in the little perk write-up on Kickstarter is if you're going to spend the money to help us make our film and you select the perk where you want to have a phone call with us, and I mean, I'm going to take an interest in what you're doing too, and who knows what could form out of that. Like that, it's also just a great way to connect with the filmmakers. I mean, one of the perks that actually went, it's called the Practical Effects Experience, and this guy named Howard Burton, he purchased it. And now what he's going to be able to do is he's going to get to come and actually be in the film as one of the monsters and have a complete makeup done on him, sculpted and everything, and then he gets to come on set for one of the days of shooting to be a monster in the film. So, and then another perk we have is something we're calling Fatal Pictures Film School. Basically, you get to come during a pre-production meeting, you get to come during a day on set, you get to come during a post-production editing session, and then you come with us to the screen, the whatever festival premiere it is, wherever it is, if you can get to it, or the one closest to you, and you go and check out the film. So you kind of get this comprehensive look at the beginning to the end making of this film. And I think for somebody who's just trying to figure things out and they just want to have a little bit of experience, I'm not saying that, like you said, we're not Oliver Stone, but we're making a film and we're going to be doing some cool things. So it would be an awesome experience for anybody who is aspiring like we are to try to get into the industry.
Yeah, that sounds badass.
I absolutely love it. And it's a nice thing that we're trying to do here is, yeah, we're promoting independence, but it's not just to promote an individual thing. You guys, you have got it, where it's not just about that. It's about a networking thing, that there can be a community involved where people can meet each other and like each other and do stuff together. So I love your idea of having that happen as your Kickstarter.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Have you guys showed any of your films like at conventions or screenings?
Yeah, all of our films, Worm, Familiar, they've played handfuls of film festivals internationally as well as horror conventions. They've played on television across the states.
What's that like for you guys to, if you're at a film festival, to watch your film, amongst other people?
It's a rush. I mean, it's probably one of the scariest things you can do. You create something and then you've got to go sit with a bunch of strangers and you have no idea how they're going to react to it. And it's great when especially with Worm and Familiar, they're dark stories, but I feel like they have some sort of morbid humor in them as well. They're sort of pitch black comedy. And when you hear an audience laughing at things that are awful, but they're kind of funny because they're so awful, you kind of get a little something out of that. When we went up to Fantasia in Montreal, which when we got into Fantasia with Familiar, we were ecstatic because that's probably one of the biggest festivals in Canada. It's not the biggest. It's probably behind Toronto International Film Festival. I'd say it's probably the second biggest festival in Canada, and it's probably the biggest genre-specific festival. So when we got into that, and then we were the closing film of the Small Gauge Trauma short film program, it was incredible. I mean, seeing people laughing at our film, cringing, and then going up and speaking about it after, and seeing people respond to it. It's a great thing, and it actually really helps you hone your writing. It helps you kind of focus and zero in on what people respond to. And when you start out as a filmmaker, you don't necessarily have the audience in mind, but after you go to a bunch of screenings, you start thinking about the audience a lot more. So it's very helpful.
Do you think doing like the 3 shorts was definitely prepared you to try to take on a feature film, and as opposed if you guys just went right into making a feature?
I think so. And I hope so. I mean, the features are very. I mean, I still don't know how big a feature is until I actually get into it. A proper feature, but I hope that. It's not just the experience or the confidence, but it's getting the right amount of people that you want to work with, and it's about getting the project that you're actually excited about wanting to tell. And I feel like now, because of the experiences of doing the films, screening them, getting the reviews, seeing what works and doesn't work, and then meeting colleagues along the way, you get to that point where you have the confidence and the connections, and then you have the story. And I finally, for a while, I didn't know what feature I wanted to write. And a lot of my writing when I was just a little bit younger, it was much darker, and it didn't have some of the redemptive, humanistic qualities that the stuff I'm writing has now. And I feel like that's something, if you can put a bit of lightness in that dark, it kind of cuts through, and it gives something that the artist can hold on to in the midst of all the darkness. So that's something I've realized over making these short films. So the feature that we want to make, which is a feature-length version of Worm, it has all of that, and it has all the things that I want my first feature to be. And I feel like you shouldn't just make films because you want to make films. You should have stories you want to tell, and I actually have a story I want to tell now. So now I think I'm ready because of that, and because of the experience of doing the shorts. And also screening at festivals and having reviews done, and people apparently digging what we do will hopefully make all of that easier. And the people that are brave enough to just rush out and do features, sometimes it succeeds and sometimes it doesn't. Regardless, I give those people a lot of respect because it takes a lot of guts to do that. And I wish maybe we had made a feature 2-3 years ago. It would be great to be, one of those stories, Wonder Kid at Sundance 25, blah, 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 short film, but that's not our path. Our path has been a little bit more meticulous. We've really been thinking about what we want to do because we've realized it's not a sprint. I always say this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So I feel like we're starting to hit our stride now, and we're actually ready to do this now, I think. And that's why maybe it's taken this long. And we want to do Heir, even though I think we could do a feature now. We just want to kind of do Heir as a statement, saying I think we've gotten to a point where we know short filmmaking and what we can do with it. Now it's ready to try a feature. So they had to go this way. Everybody has a different path, and this was ours.
Mm-hmm. There's a few movies out there now, like the VHS films and the ABCs of Death, where they're short stories from all different directors. And have you guys ever thought of approaching one of those kind of movies to try to get one of your shorts in those, or making shorts specifically for those?
So when ABCs of Death 2 announced the director's competition, looking for I guess the 26th director for the letter M. Mm-hmm. There was about a 2-week period where I was very enthused and thought, you know what, let's take a run at this, let's try it. And we started getting in touch with people, we started planning, we started figuring out sets, locations, and then this was all still when I was finishing the final touches on my script for Worm, and we were getting ready to launch the Kickstarter, and I was like, but let's try this thing, let's try this ABC's of Death thing, because if you get in, that's a huge thing for your career. And as we were doing it, we just started realizing we can't, even though this probably would be the fastest track, it felt the most rushed. And it goes back to what I was saying. Don't just make a movie to make a movie. Actually tell a story you want to tell. And I know that as much as I think of the story I had for the letter M for ABC's Death 2 was cool and it would have been fun, it's not something that I needed to tell. Whereas Heir is it's a story I want to tell and I need to tell. Mm-hmm. And when we decided, you know what, okay, let's not do it, let's just focus on Heir, I walked away with the consolation of, you know what, those guys are all going to make cool things, but we're going to get to make Heir, and I think that's cooler. So I kind of felt confident walking away and saying, let's just go focus on the Heir Kickstarter, and after that's done, let's get our feature made. So we thought about it, but eventually me and Zach, we don't consider ourselves lucky guys. Anything we've gotten when it comes to our filmmaking is because me and him put our heads down and work. All we do is grind and try to get ahead and try to meet people and try to get our stuff out there for people to check out. We don't feel like we're those charmed guys that are going to enter into a contest and win. So instead of getting distracted by that and maybe getting our hopes dashed by entering into a contest which we know we won't win, we're just like, we don't need a contest. We've never needed anything but ourselves, and that's what we're going to do. The difference is now with Kickstarter, we need other people, and that's the kind of scariest thing about Kickstarter is we need other people's help now, and I feel like out of making any film, any writing, any festival experience that was scary, this is the scariest thing because this film isn't in our hands. So I think that's why we never attempted any of the anthology things. But it's funny you mention that because me and Zach actually have just come up with a concept recently for an anthology that we're going to write ourselves.
Nice.
And we're not going to have 9 different directors. It's just going to be our own anthology because we feel like we have enough stories, and we think it would be interesting to have an anthology written by the same people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's funny you mention that, though. And that's just a very weird thing you bring up, considering just literally 2 days ago, me and Zach started talking about an idea for a horror anthology by Fatal Pictures.
Well, that's very cool because I'm a fan of anthology films, mostly.
Love them.
Yeah, I just like that. I just like that concept. And I grew up, my favorite movie as a kid was Creepshow, and I love that kind of idea. No, I'm not really big on the ABCs of Death, to be honest. So.
Yeah, I've never. I like the VHS one, but I appreciate some of those. I haven't seen the ABCs of Death, so I really can't comment on it. But anthologies, I mean, like Creepshow 2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on, you gotta love that stuff. Tales from the Darkside.
Yeah,
I mean,
very underrated.
amazing.
That's one of the best mummies ever on a film, the Tales from the Darkside movie.
That was the one with the gargoyle story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was the last
that
one.
was
That was great.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite stories ever. Cat's Eye, Stephen King's Cat's Eye. I love that.
Another great one.
Oh, yeah, that's another good one.
Yeah.
And then going back, the original Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror.
Yep.
Well, I'm looking forward to that.
I totally admire everything you just said integrity to me all over the place, that you guys are willing to say, you know what, we could get it done this way, and we could push ourselves and promote ourselves and be ahead of the game financially and in terms of being publicized, but it's not what we want to do. We want to do it a certain way, and we're going to stick to our guns and do it the way we know is right, that's going to make this the way we want it to be. Hats off to you, because I know, obviously, there's loads of people that, for their own reasons, make the decision to go the other way. But I'm now in love with you guys, and I would really like you to keep in touch and let us know what's going on. Not that I don't like the other people that come on, but I feel a connection. I feel in sync.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that too.
Very cool.
That's why I've been talking to Zach since MySpace.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Long time.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And MySpace, anytime you bring up MySpace, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's really not. He said it was like 2008. It's really not that long ago, but yeah. I think the MySpace is still up there, but I don't remember the password.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's still there. I'm sure people still use AIM, but
it would be interesting to log in there and see if there's like messages that I've never answered.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, you log on and it's like, I'd love to make your film, message me. And he's like, oh.
John Carpenter's like, I'd really like to come on this show. Damn it.
Jack Nicholson wrote you in the meanwhile.
Yeah, I believe he was a big fan of MySpace.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Kickstarter, when people start to donate, like, just explain what kind of feeling that's like. People are actually not just saying like this is cool that you want to make this movie, but they're actually donating their own money.
It's the best thing ever. I have the account linked on my phone, so every time a pledge goes in, I check my phone and I see that, and I feel like Pavlov's dog. I just get so excited, and it's the greatest feeling ever. I'm actually going to probably, after the Kickstarter campaign's over, miss the sensation of seeing pledges. But I know, maybe in the future we'll do one again, but probably not, because this has been like one of the most stressful things we've ever done. So if we get through this one unscathed, I think one might be enough.
I was asked about the stress because, people are donating their own money, and then that's, like you said, that's very cool, and it's great that they're doing that, but there must be stress involved, because then it's like, well, it's not just my time and my money, it's, these people have given something, I have to make this now. Yeah,
there's thanks. That's not even something I started thinking about yet. but no, for me it was actually just, are we going to cross the finish line? And if we don't, what does it mean? And if, you know what I mean? Like, you get these weird thoughts, and I've been telling people, it's like, you think if you make it, like, the world's going to open up and it's going to be a great achievement, and it will be, but then you think, but not the type you think it's going to be. It's just going to be like, cool, now get to making the movie and stop celebrating. But if you don't make it, then you're like, are we finished? What do we do now? Like, what? I mean, like, it's like a blatant public failure. I mean, you don't really know what's going to happen, so you just start thinking in these extremes. And the reality is, whatever happens, you're just going to be the same person, and we're still going to be trying to get a movie made regardless. But I don't know. It's very stressful. It's nerve-wracking. But it's the highs and lows, and it goes with everything we've ever experienced when it comes to filmmaking. I mean, some days you're on top of the world. Like, I remember one day, you get rejected from a festival you got your hopes on, and you're crushed. A festival you thought you were getting into. They told you had a great shot, and then no. And then a couple months later, a festival that's even better says you're in, and on the same day, you get inked in Room Work magazine, which is essentially Canada's Fangoria. And the same day, you find out these two things. So it's the highs and lows, right? And why not Kickstarter be like that too? Why not that be an up and down of emotions as well? So, it's just, it comes with the territory, I guess. It's just, it's part of what we've chosen, I guess. So we're getting used to it, I guess. I don't know how you're feeling about it, Zach.
Yeah. It's an emotional roller coaster.
I can imagine.
Roller coasters are supposed to be fun, though, right? This one is just
sometimes
stressful.
scary.
This one's just all bad.
It's just down. It's just constant falls down there. Right?
Yeah.
I hope
You'll even been able to bring up stress you didn't even know about before.
Well, on the flip, I would also think that there would be it would be motivational as well.
Of course,
like,
yeah. I mean, the idea that people have enough confidence to actually give us their money, to lend us their support, and to give us that vote of confidence, not just with words, but with actual dollar donations.
They're putting their money where their mouth is, right?
Yeah, it feels
good. It feels great.
Feeling. You just, and especially when it comes from, like, obviously friends and family help out, but then a complete stranger on Facebook who you didn't even knew you were alive. They throw in, and you're just like, oh, I love you. You're just so happy about it. It's everything I heard it was going to be, this process. And I don't know. I mean, we got 39 days to go, good or bad. So we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I certainly hope we can help you guys out, because I'm really pumped to talk with you and to listen to what you're doing. And the whole entire time, I feel very excited for you guys. I cannot see how you won't make it someday, as long as you could, just stick with it, because you've got the values, you've got the vision, you sound like decent, intelligent guys that are ready to work.
Thank you
very much. I think I'm pretty decent.
Just by having us come on here and talk to you guys and just talk about film, it helps. It really, it's like therapy. You know what I mean? The whole Kickstarter thing, it's like all this tension building up, and you don't talk about it that much, because if you talk about it, you kind of start ranting. But to be able to come on and just talk about it with people who, appreciate and understand what filmmaking is all about, it's been very therapeutic, and hopefully everybody that's listening feels like they know us a little bit more, and maybe we're not as much as strangers as we were before asking for your help,
Mm-hmm. Actually, Annabelle said it perfect. Honestly, when you're talking about it, you can tell how much how much you love what you're doing and how much you believe in it. And it's like she said, it's very motivational. And wish you guys all the best of luck.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having us on and letting us talk about our movies and just giving us an outlet to promote our stuff. It means a lot.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to have you back anytime.
Yeah, it's been a ton of fun.
Let us know how it's going. Be in touch. Let us know. We'll have you back on.
Definitely. I just want to mention everyone who hasn't seen our film Familiar, you can actually go over to fearnet.com and check out Familiar on their website right now.
Oh, nice.
They're Fearnet's great. They're hosting the film on their website, on their TV channel, and Fearnet also has an on-demand, and I know across the states in certain providers.
Yeah, I actually have Fearnet on my cable and Comcast.
Oh, wicked! There you go. But everyone who doesn't have that, or everyone in Canada, you can just go to fearnet.com, their website, and you can search for the film on there, and Richard and myself are actually introducing the film.
Exactly.
Tell them the
Now's
name of that
perfect
film
time.
again. You said FearNet a lot. What's the name of the film?
Oh, the name of the
Familiar.
film. Yeah, you think I work plugging FearNet. No, our movie's called Familiar. It's hosted on FearNet, and FearNet's actually a great company. I know a few people over there. They're just really great people, and we're more than happy to have the film represented by FearNet.
Excellent.
That's great.
And it's a staff pick right now.
What was that?
Yeah, it's actually a staff pick. They really love the film
wow.
over there, and
Oh,
I'm sure everyone else will definitely love it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to check that out tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah, please do.
absolutely.
And
Please do.
the banner, for people who saw the banner promoting the interview, I use a lot of stills from Familiar in the banner.
That banner's
great.
awesome, by the way, man. I love
Thank you.
that banner. That's my Facebook cover photo right now.
Yeah, I kept switching back and forth, so glad you guys liked it.
Neil is
Yeah, I
very
really,
good.
Neil, I really appreciate you having us on. Yeah, really happy about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for coming on.
And Annabelle, thank you so much for the sweet words. I really appreciate a lot of things you had to say, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And I will let you know right now, I'm very honest. And tonight I've told everybody I'm honest, Annabelle. Really and truly, I'm not just saying it to fluff you guys up. I really am looking forward to seeing what you do.
Oh, thank you.
You're very
Great.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. It's been a lot of fun.
And also, one last plug. Anyone on Twitter, please follow us at Fatal Pictures.
We should plug our Twitter more often as well. More Facebook oriented, but you should follow us too, Without Your Head. Good plug, Mr. Green.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to break here, and we will be back. Thanks, the guys here, Richard Powell and Zach Green of Fatal Pictures.
Thank you.
Hey, this is David Naughton, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com.